What if the key to discovering your most authentic self wasn't found in a mirror, but in a round pen with a very large horse? In this episode, I sit down with champion horseman and storyteller Tik Maynard to explore what happens when we step into fear, let go of outcomes, and dare to live and lead on purpose. This one isn't just for equestrians, it's for anyone navigating change, craving presence, and trying to become the kind of human they were always meant to be. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan. I'm Dan Peters, psychologist and leadership coach. This show is all about bringing hope, connection, awareness, and wisdom through meaningful conversations that inspire us to be better versions of ourselves and have a positive impact on humanity. This is your space to pause, reflect, and reconnect with who you are, what you care about, and who you want to be. We have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. For today's show, I have the privilege of speaking with Tik Maynard. Tik spent much of his 20s competing full-time in the sport of modern pentathlon. He was on the Canadian national team and won the national championship twice, and he competed at multiple World Cups, World Championships, and at the Pan Am Games. Tik has evented at the advanced level and been longlisted and shortlisted for the Canadian national 3-day event team. He won the freestyle twice at the Thoroughbred Makeover and judged it once. Now, this is super exciting. Tik won the Road to the Horse World Championship of Colt starting the past 2 years, most recently a few months ago. We are going to talk all about that. He travels year-round teaching clinics in the US, Canada, England, and Scotland, and is the online instructor for the Horseman's University and the Noel Floyd Equestrian Masterclass. Tik is the author of 2 books. In the middle are the horsemen, and his brand new book, which we're going to be diving into today, Starting in the Middle, How Horses, Those That Train Them, and 265 Minutes with One Colt Helped Me Find Myself at Midlife. He lives with his wife, Sinead, a top American eventer, and 2 children in Citra, Florida, where they run Copperline Farm. Tik, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, man, so many places to go. As I said before the show, I feel like I have been in your life. I've been in that barn. I now see an aspect of it where you live. I imagine the farm. And I guess I just want to start with, you're a storyteller. Like, you are a storyteller. And I was wondering, like, how did that come to be? And when did you realize that that is one of your many gifts and talents?
I don't think telling stories, orally through the spoken word is something that comes naturally to me. It's something I've worked on, but reading in particular, first of all, reading stories is something that's always been a passion of mine. I remember as a kid staying up late under the covers with a flashlight and reading books and just anything I could get my hands on, fiction, nonfiction, memoirs, novels. And then, in my 20s, I was starting to think I had something to share, in the horse world.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've always appreciated good writing. And I thought maybe this is something that I could get good at myself, if I was interested enough in it, if I was curious enough and passionate enough. And so I actually hired a writing coach and I started reading books about writing. And it's helped me share that message about horses, and it's also helped me as I'm learning, as I'm a student. It's helped me sort of clarify uh, to myself what it is I'm learning. And I've gotten in the habit of taking notes when I'm learning new things
Mm-hmm.
in the horse world.
Which that was your clear approach. I mean, we'll get into this. I mean, the amount of people that you talk to, the amount of books that you read, I think that also seems like a love that you've had for a long time. I mean, you devour books. You're reading like 9 at a time at some points, probably more. And there they are around you in your wonderful library there. Um, so speaking of of a writing coach, I pulled out this quote, which is so thematic of your journey, that you got from the self-help book on writing, which the quote is, "I am now willing to act in the presence of fear. I hereby resolve that I will never again allow fear to keep me from doing something I genuinely desire to do." And that's in a writing self-help book, and the metaphor for life and your journey.
I mean, when I read that line, I put the book down and I just sat there, like, kind of with a glazed look in my eye, and I was like, I can't just taking in that sentence, to say that never again you're not gonna do
Hmm.
something simply because of fear if you genuinely wanna do it. I mean, that's a pretty intense, bold statement, and,
Hmm.
I don't know if it's possible to live a life totally like that, but it's certainly, something to aspire to, I think, to try to do. And,
Hmm.
reading that sentence had a big impact on how I approached, first of all, accepting to compete at the Road to the Horse competition, and then second of all, in my preparation for it. It's also affected a little bit, how I wrote the book. There's lots of places where, you feel like writing something that is personal to you can make you feel vulnerable. But I also
Hmm.
think recognizing that those are the best books. When you see somebody that has overcome a difficulty and they're really letting the audience be there in those vulnerable moments with them, it can make a book much more powerful, and it can help the author kind of get something off their chest and explain it and create a community around them. And so,
Hmm.
that quote that you just read, it's just one quote or one sentence from the whole book, but it was certainly one of the most powerful sentences I've ever read in my whole life.
That book, I mean, that the book and that sentence completely landed with me, and the themes of your book completely resonated with me. I'm 55. I know you're in your early 40s now, I would say, right? So is that right?
43, yeah.
43, yeah. So little ahead of you on the journey, but and on that the midlife of just questioning and searching, and two things which struck throughout was the ex- acknowledging, accepting, working with, working through fear, and the quest to be one's authentic self in life, and in life generally, but also in your craft, like to truly step into who you really are and how hard that that is for us to do.
Yeah, I remember reading a book a few years ago. It was called, I think, Work Hard, Be Nice, or maybe it was called Work Hard, Be Kind, and it was about these teachers in the United States that started a charter school program called the KIP program, Knowledge is Power program, and the kids were called Kipsters. And when they started
Hmm.
the program, the two teachers were very effective teachers, and they were helping kids that came from difficult backgrounds, and they were helping them achieve great things. And then they started to hire other teachers to teach their methods. And they had a certain way of teaching, and they tried to get all the others to teachers to teach the way that they were teaching. And what they found was that the success rate wasn't as high as with the original two teachers. And then as you delve deeper into the book, what you sort of take away from it, or what I took away from it, is that every teacher has their own sort of unique, authentic self, or their own kind of superpower when it comes to teaching. Some teachers teach through storytelling, some teachers teach through sports, some teachers teach through acting, some teachers relate to the students maybe through physical touch, like a hug or a high five, or for simply being a good listener and being present. And, when we look back and we remember the best teachers in our lives, there was something about them that felt sort of authentic or unique to themselves that we wanted to like latch onto and listen to. And uh, I wanted to take that idea into starting horses, because there's a lot of different styles of working with horses, just like there's a lot of different styles of working with kids or working with dogs. And I think, yes, we can learn from all these other people, but to
Hmm.
be the best teacher you can be, I think it comes back to teaching at your most authentic way.
Hmm. All right, I want to go in two directions at once, so I'm going to throw them both out and then see where you take them. One is, um, we need to talk about, educate our listeners of what starting a horse is, which I am now educated because I read your book. But like, we need to set the stage for them. And related to that is, and maybe before that, is when you that gnawing, when you had that feeling, I need something different. I have a longing. I'm searching. Like, maybe start there, and then how that led to you preparing for this competition? Well, first being asked, then preparing, then winning. And then I can't wait to talk about the second win because I know nothing about that. And we know how much harder it is to repeat than to do it the first time.
Yeah, I mean, starting at the end there, the first year that I did it, I definitely went in as the underdog, and all the comments I
Mm-hmm.
were getting were like, just do your best. And if you've got to stop halfway through, that's okay. And just do the best job by the horse. And after winning it one time, being the underdog, the second year, all the comments, were basically, are you going to win again? Are you going to defend your championship? And it's two very different
Mm-hmm.
mindsets. To go back and just talk about what the competition is about is it's starting a horse over 3 days. And starting horses used to be called breaking horses. A few people still call it breaking horses, but essentially what that process is it's taking a horse that's maybe never been around people before, and it's essentially sort of taming them to the point where they can touch us, we can touch them, we can groom them, we can put a saddle on, we can put a halter or a bridle on, and eventually maybe we can ride them and sort of steer them around, and we can start to create a relationship with that horse. And a lot of horses, the way that they're brought up, they're essentially like wild animals. A horse, as opposed to a dog or a cat, still has a lot more of that wildness in them.
Mm-hmm.
They're very much a flight animal and a herd animal, and it takes a lot more, I think, sort of knowledge of horses to create that relationship with them. Um, when we look at the horse world, most of what we see maybe on TV, like the Kentucky Derby or Olympics, where we see dressage or show jumping at the Olympics, what we're seeing is the culmination of many hours of training. We're seeing uh, people have done all the homework, all the practicing at home, and we're seeing sort of the art at the end of it. But at every
Mm-hmm.
horse's life, there's a starting process where they're first getting introduced to people. And that used to be thought of as a sort of a trade, almost like a plumber or a carpenter. And now
Mm-hmm.
there's certain people that are starting to shine a light on that and say, this isn't just a trade, this is an art in itself. And how can we show the world, some of the artists that are out there at starting horses? And the way they did that is they have 3 or 4 people start 3 or 4 horses right in front of a crowd over a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the last weekend in March every year at the Kentucky Horse Park. And they invite 10,000 people to come watch, and they live stream it around the world, and they put up $130,000 prize money. And it's a pretty intense situation. Now, I've done
Mm-hmm.
horses my whole life, but mainly what I've done is jumping horses and 3-day eventing horses, and I have not been starting horses, which is almost its own sort of discipline or genre. And after watching this competition in 2012, I just couldn't get it out of my head. It was something that I just thought about a lot. I followed the competition every year. I'd watch the live stream or the DVD every year. And I sort of got more and more drawn into that world. And I started to reach out to people in that world of colt starting to see if maybe one day I could get an invitation. And, fast forward eventually to 2023, in the summer of 2023, and I finally got that invitation.
And it was part exhilaration and elation, and part like, oh shit, like, right, like
Yeah,
like, oh
absolutely.
gosh,
There was
here we go. Yeah.
there was a lot of exhilaration and there was a lot of fear involved. There's all the fears of being in the public eye. There's all the fears of, am I actually good enough to do this? There's the fears with starting a horse of, there's actual real dangers involved. It's not like you're, sitting in a room knitting a sweater. It's more like you're, wingsuit flying or something, and if you get hurt, there's natural risk of getting really hurt or killed. So there's all these different sort of fears coming at me, and I'm trying to navigate how I feel about them, and I'm trying to talk to people that are close to me, and I'm trying to get their opinion, and I'm getting conflicting advice from some of those people as well. So it was a pretty hard thing to navigate as I prepared for it.
And when was that? Was it a moment, or what was going on when you were in your transition? Like your search for self, search for meaning, or change in those things?
Yeah, I think change in my life is something that I both recognize the importance of, and I also struggle with it. Um, so I'm trying to constantly ask myself the question: is this something, like that quote at the very beginning? Is this something that I genuinely want to do, and am I just scared to do it? And making this sort of turn in my life to enter this competition, uh, I was faced with a lot of fears. I was also faced with the question of, having to talk to my wife about it and explain that I was going to do something differently with my life for the next year, and how that was going to affect our life with two kids, and how that was going to affect, paying the bills and the mortgage, and what that was going to look like in terms of picking up the kids from school and dropping them off. And it involved a really long conversation with her. And to be honest, I read some books sort of about sports psychology, and I talked to a couple of sort of, I don't know what you'd call them, sort of therapists or life coaches, and
Mm-hmm.
if there wasn't sort of one moment. It was a tough decision, and at the end there was sort of this spark inside of me that kept not being willing to go out, and just kept saying, this is something that I think you can do, and this is something that you should do, and the only reason not to do this is because you'd be afraid.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that the Mary Oliver quote, right?
Yes.
Um, that well, there's that quote that I'm looking for right now, and you could probably pull it off your. I have this written down here. Tell me, what is your plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And the other voice in your head, don't live a half-lived life, right?
Yes.
Like you. So there was this, and we get these, like we get these. We have to listen, and I think a lot of times they are, like you said, they're scary voices, because it means changing something. It means doing something different. It means having tough conversations with your partner, your family, and ultimately, like the toughest conversations with ourself. Like, am I going to push myself? Am I going to face the fear that comes with all the things that you mentioned?
It's interesting that you said that last part about having the tough conversation with yourself, because really, in the end, that was the toughest conversation I had, because there's so many opportunities for myself to tell a sort of little lie to myself and have an excuse not to do it. Like, it's not fair to take the time away from the kids. It's going to cost us too much money, and we're going to be having, trouble paying the mortgage. It's going to, is this really, is this really my goal in my life? Is this really a fair or ethical thing to do with horses? And there were so many sort of excuses that
Mm-hmm.
were tempting to give myself. That was probably the hardest thing to overcome, is to really be honest with myself and sort of overcome those excuses.
Mm-hmm. And and what I found fascinating is, well, you write with so much, and you act with so much humility and modesty. I don't know if that's I don't know. I love it. I love the Canadian culture. The Canadian. I think it feels cultural to me relative to American culture. I mean, was that fair for me to say? Like, there's something about you that is, and this is an
Yeah.
overgeneralization, of course,
Yeah.
but that is Canadian in you, which is the way that you present yourself and live your life.
Yeah, I think growing up is definitely something that, I lived in Canada till I was in my mid 20s before I moved to the United States. And it's like you said, it is a bit of a stereotype and overgeneralization, but it's definitely a little bit more part of the culture in Canada, to have a little bit of that uh humility. We're not,
Hmm.
like in the United States, it's common to talk about the greatest country on earth. And, I don't know if that's
Right.
ever crossed the lips of a Canadian. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, we're we're
Yeah.
hoping to be in the top 15.
I like that. I okay, so to where I'm going with this is, by reading the book and how you approached all of the people you reached out to, all of the experts, whether they were experts in horse psychology, or they are former champions, or they are experts in training chickens, like regardless of who, ethics, we'll talk about the fairness and the ethics, Ren, right?
Yeah.
And as you were training, like, I would never know that you were so accomplished in these other areas of horse riding, horsemanship,
Yeah.
and competing, because you approached it with so much humility, and like, well, I'm a novice in this. Like, I don't know, have I maybe started one or two horses, and it was like, it's almost like you just completely separated all of that success and experience from this new endeavor.
Yeah, I at the beginning of getting ready, I was invited in, I think, maybe June of 2023, and I was going to be competing in March of 2024, and so I had about 9 months, and I made a very particular plan that was uh, sort of strategic and well thought out, which was that for the 9 months, the first eight were going to be learning as much as I can from other people and putting myself in as many uncomfortable situations as I could, productively uncomfortable situations as I could. Um, and trying to learn as many different methods of starting horses as I could. And then in the last month, before the actual competition, I was going to remember the things I wanted to remember. I was going to take in the skills or the techniques I wanted to take in. And I was going to stop taking any lessons or getting any new input in the last month. And I was going to incorporate those things into my own authentic way of working with the horse. And
Hmm.
I don't think I would have been able to approach it with that humility you're describing if I hadn't made that plan at the beginning. Writing that plan down and discussing it with my wife and the team around me and saying, this is the plan. Then, whenever I got into a situation that was a little bit difficult for me, or I felt like I might have a brace or a defensiveness, or I might lose some of that humility or curiosity, I'd be like, no, this is my plan. And we've discussed it and we feel confident that it's going to work. Um, you know, working with horses and preparing for this, I'm always trying to be aware that having a plan is important, and then also having a flexibility in the plan is important. And
Right.
it's kind of a hard thing to navigate, but that was certainly part of the plan to approach it with that curiosity that you're saying.
Well, and that's exactly what you had to do with number 11, Tomcat, your first Colt, who now is in your on your acres, which is
Yeah.
beautiful. Like just the having to adjust. But wait, that's the end. I want to. I mean, well, not the end. That's the end of the book. But I want to go back to before we go there. This the ethics and the fairness that you ask the hard questions, you talk to people on both sides, and is it fair to do this to a horse? And also at the same time asking the question, to be a good horseman, do you have to be a good human? Like I like these are very like they're very important conceptual and ethical topics, and not one that I don't know the percentage of people who think about that when they're doing the craft. So tell us a little bit about that journey in trying to figure out the kind of person you needed to be, and is this even something that you morally and with your values that you could get behind?
Yeah, there's more and more questions these days about a lot of things in life, but in the horse world is where, the world that I live in, and so I see it a lot. We have questions like, should we use a bit with horses? Should we be allowed to carry a whip with horses? Should we even ride horses? Should we even be allowed to keep horses as pets? This particular competition, which is starting a horse. There's a lot of people that would say, starting a horse shouldn't be a competition, and it definitely shouldn't be a timed event. You could compare it to maybe saying, with a kid that's in a kindergarten age, it's like, how fast could you teach them a sport? Like when you see,
Hmm.
the risk you run. I read a really interesting book a few years ago. It's called Open. It's about Andre Agassi, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but basically in the first
Yeah.
chapter of the book, what you kind of realize is that his dad pushed him so hard to be a tennis champion at a very, very young age that he basically grew up hating tennis. And because he had
Hmm.
no backup plan, I don't think he finished high school, and because he really had no other skills, and it was the only way he was making money. And then by that time, had a lot of people depending on him, and he was also the kind of person that had sort of a perfectionist mentality. And so, even though he wasn't enjoying tennis, he was still really hard on himself about getting better at it. And that's exactly, as a father, what I don't want to do to my kids, and that's also, as a horseman, what we don't want to do with a young horse. Is we don't want them to feel our stress. We don't want them to feel our drive for perfection. We don't want them to feel our need to excel at a sport. Maybe not ever, but especially, in that starting process. And
Hmm.
so the question the competition, really asks is, can you get a lot done in a short amount of time with a horse without making them realize like that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah. That's such a great parallel as well that you just drew with parenting, because as I learned how sensitive and intelligent the horses are in sensing energy, right, and sensing every move, and um, kids are the same way, right? Like kids are the
Yes.
same way, even though we don't always think they are. They're absorbing everything. They react to our energy even when we're like don't know that we're giving off a certain energy. And then we all have our own aspirations for ourselves and then our aspirations for them. And you said that beautifully. It's just like, how do we not put that on them? Um, and one of the other just beautiful parts of the book is everything is connected. It's the connection of your life. I mean, as a husband, and you and Sinead having a just a really close and really cool relationship. That's I could be more eloquent with that, but I could tell like it's a really deep uh, relationship. And then you also having to be a dad to Brooks and Goldfish, and manage that, and you're going through your own development and stretching yourself, and you're trying to be the best person you can be as a horseman in this new skill, this new trade, this new event, like all at once. It's all, and that's, I mean, that's what I really was absorbed in the memoir, because it's about horses, as you say, but it's also not, right? It is and it isn't. It is your human journey through the lens and of the growth through learning how to do this, and then um I want to say perfecting it, but I know that's not the goal, right? Like to the level that you could get to reach a goal without focusing on the goal. That's where we're going to go here, right? That riddle.
Yeah. Yeah. The quote that I remembered was this. It was high involvement, low attachment.
Yes,
Which
yes,
means
that's where I was going.
we're highly involved with the process, but we have a low attachment to the outcome. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I've heard that quote in various stages, like when we talk about being process oriented versus goal oriented, I've heard that concept
Yes.
before. And it's one thing to sort of understand that intellectually and to know what it means, but it's really a completely another thing to actually feel that inside you and authentically live that. And in many different
Yes.
parts of my life, I've tried to do that and failed. And for whatever sort of reason or combination of reasons, I feel like this is the first time in my life where I've been able to actually live that, and to a very high degree in the gearing up and the competing for the competition for this. We had a very particular plan that um, for myself and for the team of people around me, that we made sort of a series of principles or rules that we were going to follow, and a sort of a goals for what we were trying to do, and not one of the goals was to win, and we did
Mm-hmm.
end up winning, but that was certainly not
Mm-hmm.
one of the goals leading up to it.
Mm-hmm. So Sinead gave you this great quote. What you just talked about, high involvement, low attachment, is the art of, might get this right, ikigai.
Yeah, I think I
Yeah.
don't really know how it's pronounced. It's
Yeah.
Japanese, ikigai maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Japanese concept of having a purpose in life, a place where profession, passion, mission, and vocation intersect. The voice of the ikig- ikigai is quiet. It leads. It does not command. Man, it's like the way. It's the Tao. It's like the way, and it made me think. Are you familiar with Inner Excellence by Jim Murphy?
Yeah,
That book.
I'm
Yeah.
familiar with it. I wouldn't be able to quote stuff from it, but I'm familiar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But so what and this is by way of just really reinforcing the approach that you used. Um, I think the connection is so Jim Murphy, a coach for elite athletes, his grandfather was a samurai, and so there's a lot of fusion of your approach and what he talks about. And I think for me, what was most profound is, and again, I'm going to give these words, which I believe you embodied, which is his concepts embody the way to compete is with love, courage, and wisdom. And you don't go to win. You go to be the best version. You prepare to be the best version of yourself in the moment. And what really resonated with me as a competitor is you don't know if you're supposed to win. So don't even think about that. The universe will decide whether you're
Yeah.
supposed to win or not. And so for you to embody that, which related to towards the end of not this championship, but the last one in the book, where at the end you're like, I just got to be me. Like you just said, like I've learned everything. I've learned everything, and now I've got to trust me, not the experts, not the former champions, not all the people who wrote all the books. It comes down to you trusting your own instincts.
Yeah, and that's both a difficult thing and an easy thing to do. It's I think if you're prepared the right amount and you have the right plan and the right people around you, then I think you can get into
Hmm.
in sports we call it, the unthinking place or the flow state or the
Flow.
zone.
Yep. Yep.
The place where time slows down. And it's just sort of this magical spot that even if you've been there before, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to recreate it and get there again.
Hmm.
Um, I do think the more authentically you're approaching something, and the more you're focusing on the process and not on the end result, I think the easier it is to get there. But even when everything is lined up, I think there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to enter into that state.
Hmm.
I will say the hour and a half Friday at the competition, the hour and a half Saturday, and the hour Sunday. We have just about 4 hours of competing over 3 days with this Colt, this 3-year-old gelding quarter horse, and I can honestly say there's no time in my life where for 4 hours over 3 days I have been that focused and that present. And
Hmm.
it was almost, you know, those kind of scenes where you see in the movie where everything else around you kind of blurs away, and you're just right there with the horse, and you can hear that horse's breathing, and you can hear their footfalls, and you can feel their breath on your cheek, and everything else, all the fans in the background, they've all just sort of disappeared into this blur.
Hmm. There's nothing like that flow state, right? For those of us who can be there, and then once we realize we're in flow, that's the moment we actually go out of flow as
Yes.
well, or go out of the zone, right? So it's like
Yeah.
it's this edge of
Yeah.
like just being fully absorbed and immersive, and gosh, it's such the antithesis of how we're living now, right? And when you go back to your world, and now you've got the kids, and you've got the farm, and you have the horses, and you have the book, and you have podcasts, and you got like it's so hard to be focused and not distracted. And I know something that you also try to do with the kids, right? To draw that parallel again, it's like how to like just push everything away and like be in the moment uh, while you have that moment. And so, in that sense, it feels like this competition is a sacred space that it allows one to get into this zone. And I'm wondering, do you try to generalize that? I mean, have you tried to take that and bottle it for other aspects of your life?
Yeah. Like I said, there just because you know that it's possible and you kind of know some of the ingredients that go into it doesn't mean that I've been able to instantly recreate that feeling. That said, the by experiencing those 4 hours over 3 days, by going through that experience and realizing what it felt like and how it turned out, and the confidence it gave me in my life, and the reinforcement of the sort of the value of authenticity that it gave me, it's given me more, I guess, more encouragement to try to be more present in different parts of my life. More and more now. Um, when I'm with my kids, I'll put the phone down. When I'm riding a horse, I'll leave my phone in the barn. When I'm having a conversation with somebody over coffee or over dinner, I'll make the extra effort to put leave the phone in the car or put it under the table and turn the ringer off. And uh, the more I do it, kind of easier it gets and the better I get at it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is a muscle. It is practice. I mean, it is about being completely intentional, which there's so much about your process of preparation. I mean, the whole thing was intentional, right? The way you set it up, the way you talked about the principles, the way you sought out the experts. Very thoughtful and intentional. And then, as you point out, how difficult it is for all of us then to put that moment to moment awareness and presence in the moment. Like it just, it's like a meditation. It's like refocusing. Okay, I just went off. Okay, get back. Right.
Yes.
And it's like that's the natural. And even in the competition, 2024, you talk about being aware of what you're doing. Also, my words, like being in the zone,
Yep.
and then realizing when, oh, I just got off. There was a lapse of, I got too comfortable, or there was a lapse of my focus, and you got yourself back on, like back connected with Tomcat.
Yeah. Yeah. With horses, I find it a little easier than in other parts of my life to find that focus and find that presence. And I think
Hmm.
part of it is that watching a horse is such an important skill, and it's something that I've practiced a lot, that it's a little easier to take, just ask myself the question constantly, what does the horse need from me right now? And it's not saying, what do I need? What can I do? What can I do differently? It's really like looking at the horse and taking myself out of my body and looking at them and putting all my attention. What am I hearing? What am I seeing? What am I feeling? And saying, what does that horse need? The
Hmm.
second thing is that when you're dealing with something that is big and strong and fast as a horse, things can actually get dangerous pretty quickly. And
Hmm.
there's something about that little bit of adrenaline that can also keep you on your toes as well. In the horse world, it's pretty common. Well, not all of the horse world, but in most parts of the horse world that I've experienced, it's pretty common for riders to wear a helmet, to
Hmm.
wear boots that are going to protect your toes, to wear gloves that are going to protect your hands. And in some ways, the things that protect us also keep us a little bit from being fully engaged. And when I went
Hmm.
to, as part of the preparation, I went to Argentina.
Yeah, I
And
was just gonna say barefoot,
yeah, and
barefoot.
and he exactly, Christo Scarpati and his dad, Oscar Scarpati in Argentina, they start the horses in the way of the indigenous people of Argentina, and they'll
Mm,
often be starting horses barefoot. No gloves, no helmet, bare feet around these horses with these, they weigh 1,000 pounds and they got these hooves, and if they step on your toes, like, it's gonna hurt a lot. However, when I did that, when I was there and I took my shoes off, there was something about it that felt so grounding, feeling the dirt between my toes that made me quicker and lighter on my feet, that made me more aware of where the horse's feet were. And while if I had been stepped on, it would have hurt more, I think the chances of me being stepped on went down a lot.
mm.
Just so much, like, I was just so much more aware and into it and focused than I had ever experienced before working, with heavy
Mm.
boots and gloves and a helmet. It's just a very different feeling.
Yeah, you mentioned the Black Stallion. It brings me back to childhood and watching the Black Stallion, and just how, oh man, still gives me the chills just thinking about those scenes. Right, we got back on the island,
Yes.
and
Yeah, with Alex and the
um,
Black Stallion, and
yeah,
that child or that teenager's relationship to a horse,
hmm,
where they're just trying to figure it out and they're present and they're creating that trust that goes back and forth. I mean, that's what we're, as adults, all the horse people that I know as adults, is a little bit what we're searching for. And sometimes,
hmm,
you get caught up in competition, but really when it comes back to it, it's trying to create that relationship where you can depend on each other. And if you're into sport, where you can then take that trust and that respect into a higher level venue, like maybe one day the Olympics or something like that.
hmm. Well, and the your statement, what what does the horse need from me? Um, where you write about those of you who think this way in your field is, um, if something happens, it's not the horse's fault, it's your fault. Like you weren't able to meet the need, to understand what was going on in the moment, or pushing the horse too far. And so this whole idea of what does the horse need from me, and if I broaden this to not only parenting, which you're in the throes of, but even beyond of where we are being pushed, taxed as humans at this stage in history, it's like what a really interesting stance for us all if we're looking at the person across from us and could ask what do they need from me right now.
Yeah, it's very easy to get caught up in what do I need or what am I thinking or where do I want to go. But I find the relationships with the horses, and I think it's interesting that you say about that with the people around us, the kids or the people that we work with or our partners. Uh, but with the level of intelligence and motivation that horses have, a lot of times I'll hear people say things like, I feed my horse and I pay for my horse, and therefore they should do this. Or my horse was able to do this yesterday, and therefore they should be able to do it today. And what I've tried to do is, for myself, take the word should out of my vocabulary with horses. There's no they should do this, or they shouldn't do that, or they should do this, or they should be better behaved, or they should jump the jump, or they should come to me, or they should love me. I just try to take that right out. If they are doing that thing that I want, that's great. If
Hmm.
they're not doing the thing that I want, or they're stepping on my toes or whatever, it comes down to two things. How do I make them feel? And what have I taught them?
Mm.
And what have I taught them is important. A horse has to learn some of these things just like a kid has to learn some things. But the how do I make them feel is the more important part. There's a great quote that I've heard a few times in the horse world, which is that they don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. All right, we're actually we're coming up with the concept for your next book, um, because there's really something here, Tick. Like the idea of what horses teach us about the kind of person that we want to become, how we want to be, and how we treat others. Like again, as I was listening to your process through in the book, it is like a master class in respect, in self-awareness, in um, discipline, in detachment from outcome, focus on process, on managing fear, our primal instincts. And these are all these are all needed for how we interact with the humans in our life as well.
Yeah, there's something about uh, animals and even just nature in general. Whether it's a horse or a dog or just even just walking through the woods, that will bring me back to the present often and will remind me about how to live other parts of my life. And I think it's
Yeah.
something that I hope, it gets hard for some people that live in cities and they don't have that access to animals or nature as easily as other people. I feel very lucky and privileged to live where I do and do what I do. But um, it's something that I hope will stay an important part of everybody's life and of society for sure.
Yeah. What was the challenge or change in preparing for the repeat in 2025, besides breaking your arm in three places while on a run, right? Like
Yeah.
you and have like broken so many bones and body parts on horses, and then you break your arm in three places on a run right before you're going to start training again. So, anyways, to set that context, what how did you go about it the second time?
You know, there was the physical or the skill part of it, what I was doing to get ready. And that was very similar the second year. Starting the horses, the talking to other people, the trying to stay in shape myself, running 3 or 4 times a week, all that kind of stuff. The mental part of it was very different the second year. The first year, I was definitely the underdog. I was definitely, in the history of this competition, it's been going on for over 20 years now, and there's been 3 or 4 people competing every year. I'm only the second non-Western rider, sort of non-cowboy, to do this. My background in horses is more like what we see at the Olympics: the helmet and the
Mm-hmm.
tight pants and the tall black boots and that kind of stuff. And I'm competing against the person that is wearing the cowboy hat and the Wranglers with the big belt buckle and the cowboy boots, and uh, y- you know,
Different culture.
very
Different
different
culture.
culture. And so not only I was the underdog, but I was also from a different culture. And a lot of people were basically, in one sense or the other, just like I said earlier, they're just like, just do the best you can. If you got to stop halfway through, that's fine. It's a big deal just to be invited, so anything is a win.
Mm-hmm.
That was the comments the first year. The comments the second year, almost everybody said, "Are you going to go and defend your title? Are you going to win again?"
Yeah.
And it puts you in a very different mindset. And the biggest challenge the second year was not trying not to be rude to those people because they have the best intentions, but
Mm-hmm.
really trying not to listen to them at all. Trying to like not get that in my head at all, and try to have that same basically I was trying to approach it the same way the second year as the first year mentally, which is it's my first time doing it. I've got a plan. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. Even though I've won it once, I'm trying not to win it again. I'm not even trying to say to myself, I won it once. I'm just trying to really approach it with that beginner's
Mm-hmm.
mindset
Beginner's
of doing it
mind.
the first time.
Yeah.
And it was a challenge. I had to constantly, remind myself of that. And there were a few times where there'd be conversations between people. I was amongst 3 or 4 people having a conversation, and they were discussing me going in, and maybe I would win it a second time. And I had to leave the conversation. Like I just had to walk away and not
Mm-hmm.
be a part of it, because if I was very aware that if I had started to let that get in my head, I would not be able to be high involvement, low attachment. That attachment would start to creep in.
Totally. Totally. And and in the actual performance, the 3 days, did it go different? Was it how different was that than your first time?
It was. Well, first of all, the number one thing was the horse was very different,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which which from the perspective of my approach. So let me just talk about the horse for a sec to give you an idea, and then I'll talk about how that affected my approach. So the horse I had the first year was a more sensitive horse, a horse that you have to earn their trust a little bit more, a horse that takes a little bit longer to work on their relationship with, a horse that if you do a good job and you earn their respect and trust, that they're going to give it to you, but is not about ready to offer it. The horse I had the second year was much more ready to offer that relationship. The horse the second year, in terms of something that people might understand, was much more like a golden retriever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Much more ready to have a relationship with me.
Mm-hmm.
Much quicker to sort of sniff my hand and look me in the eye and say, "What are we going to do next?" And so from that perspective, it made it in some ways a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree with the quote that it's much harder to defend a title than win a title. And I think a lot of that comes down to the mental aspect of it. Just like I had my principles going into the first year, I had sort of some principles that I made for the second year. And the single biggest one that I made clear to myself and I made clear to the team around me is that this is going to be a different experience than the first year, and we have to be prepared for the unexpected. And I said to myself, and I said to my wife and the people around me, and Nick, my pen wrangler, I said, anything can happen. It could be that something goes viral on social media. It could be that there's a storm and the power goes out. It could be that my horse gets sick and I have to get a different horse. It could be that I break an arm. It could be that one of my kids is playing in the yard and they've got to go to the hospital. It could be anything. But basically it was that we're prepared the best as we can, and there's a good chance that something is going to happen this year, and we have to be ready for it. And the amazing thing was that actually nothing major happened the second year, but maybe it's because a little bit, it's like that, if you've got your umbrella, it's not going to rain. But that was
Yeah.
definitely a big part of our preparation, is that it's not going to be the same as the first year, and be ready for anything.
Did you win all 3 days again?
No, actually, and this was the amazing part to me. So the first year in 2024, you're absolutely right. I won all 3 days and I won the overall thing. The second year in 2025, I was not winning after the first day, and I faced a very interesting question and choice with about 10 minutes or 15 minutes to go on the first day. And that is, I had gotten to a place with my horse where he was almost doing things. He was almost cantering under saddle. He was almost being able to walk over a tarp. He was almost doing these things. And I had about 10 or 15 minutes left. And I knew it would look good to the crowd. I knew it would look good to the judges judging it if I could get those things done on the first day. And in the past, those were things that I've been able to push for and accomplish. And I just thought to myself, and actually went over and talked to Nick, my pen wrangler, and the pen wrangler, he's almost like, for those of you that haven't watched this, it's almost like a groom or like a caddy in golf, or like a sort of like a
Mhm.
peer. He's not coaching you, but he's also not working for you. It's somebody that you can sort of have these conversations with right there. And I asked Nick, and I said, "Do you think we should push this?" And I said, "Nick, I don't really feel like it." And he said, "No, I don't think we should." And what I did was I left the horse right at the place where he hadn't done any of the things that I wanted him to do, but he was
Mhm.
at the moment where he was trying his hardest and ready to do them.
Mm.
And mentally for me, it was I knew it was the right thing in my heart, but mentally when you're involved in a competition like that, it was a very hard thing to do, and I'm glad Nick was there to talk through it with me, and we left it
Yeah.
at that point. And what happened was, I was just like we knew, is I wasn't judged, and I think I was in third place out of four or something like that. I don't know, but I wasn't judged right up there near the top. But the horse slept on it and I slept on it, and we came out the next day, and I'm convinced, because we left it at that place where he hadn't done it, but he was
Mhm.
trying the hardest. He came out the next day, and our relationship had grown so much overnight, and he was ready to do all those things. And then we
Yeah.
won the second day and the third day.
Wow. That is, that's ikigai. That's ikigai, like, in practice, right? Like, you were low attachment, right? And it was also like, this is the edge. This is the edge of peak performance, which is also living in the present and living intentionally, is competing without competing,
Yeah.
right? Like this,
I love
it's
that. Competing without competing. I gotta write that down. That's exactly what
yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Wow. Um, Also, just highlight your team, like Nick, such a special person in your life. Of course, Sinead, and
Jake?
like Jake, yeah,
Jake?
right,
Yeah.
Jake,
And
and
then
then
we
there was someone else, another woman.
Yeah, and we had Juliet. So Juliet is currently
Juliet,
she's living in Berlin, and she's pursuing some higher education there. I think she has dual citizenship with Germany and the United States. And then Jake lives just down the road from me, and he's a
right?
very talented Colt starter and horseman. Nick Rivera lives in Wisconsin, and the five of us just all came together with same team both years, which I was really happy with and really proud of. And everybody kind of was
Yeah,
very much, everybody has all five of us actually have a very different strengths and weaknesses with horses. And I think that was part of what made it such a valuable team, the way that we came together. Can I just tell
yeah,
you
sure,
about one little story that I was really proud of?
yeah,
So, speaking about this team, is there was this morning, this past year, 2025, where we were competing, and it was the Saturday morning, and the five of us met um, for breakfast at I think 6 a.m. in the hotel restaurant. And I hadn't been able to sleep, so I got up at I was probably down there in the lobby of the hotel probably an hour and a half before, so probably at 4:30 in the morning. And I was going through my notes for the day and sort of my plan for what I wanted to do. And so I spent an hour and a half going through that, and I had created what I thought was a pretty good plan. And then we met for breakfast at 6, all five of us. And I presented my plan as we were having coffee. And after I presented the plan, I said, "So what do you guys think?" And we went around the table, and every single person, Jake, Nick, Juliet, and Sinead, from their own unique perspectives with horses, they all had a suggestion on how to change my plan and make my plan better.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that. We had definitely incorporated their suggestions. We did some pretty major things, like instead of riding the horse much later in that day on Saturday, I rode the horse much earlier, for various reasons to do with, how the horse was feeling and thinking, and how much he was offering and what the judges were looking for and stuff like that. Um, but we incorporated all those elements of my team's ideas into the plan for that day. And most of the time with horses, we have a plan and then we shift the plan as we go. And that day, this past that Saturday of this year in 2025, I had the whole session with the horse go about as according to plan as anything could go with horses, which is pretty
Mm.
rare and pretty special. And when we left breakfast that morning at 7 a.m., I noticed that sitting a couple tables over was one of the other competitors, and he was sitting there having breakfast by himself.
Mm.
And maybe that was his plan, and that's great. That's great to feel like you got
Mm-hmm.
something by yourself and you're going through the notes in your head yourself. And that's absolutely, like, if it was what works for you. And there's been times in my life where I just want to be myself, then that's great. But I just thought, as I went by him having breakfast by himself, I just thought, how lucky am I that I
Yeah.
have this team that is supporting me and making my plan better. And like leaving
Mm-hmm.
breakfast that morning, I just felt like this immense kind of wave of gratitude for the people around me that were helping me. And aside from, winning it, which was the icing on the cake, I think the biggest thing that I took away from it both years was having, friends and family that were there and
Mm-hmm.
contributed it and supported me. And there were moments where I felt very kind of undeserving of that support. But in other ways, it really pushed me to try to be my best. And that, having, even though it's a sport with horses, it's still very much a
Mm-hmm.
human team around you.
Totally. And you're an authentic leader, being able to, like, first of all, pulling a team together very, very, very intentionally, and of course your persistence of getting Nick year one
Yeah.
is like very intentional, and then using your team, right? Leadership of like, what do you guys have? Like, you guys are here to. I want your input. Like, so that's effective leadership. And I know that you might not think of yourself as a leader that way. Let me ask the question: do you think of yourself as a leader?
No, I mean, like
Yeah,
if we were to talk about it and break it down, I'd sort of admit that there were questions of it, but I do not think of being
yeah,
a leader as something that I innately think of as a characteristic for me. No.
yeah. All right, we're adding that to your list. Okay,
I love it.
like really effective leadership. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dr. Dan, I got one question for
Yes,
you.
yeah.
Um, First of all, I think you're a very authentic leader and podcast host. And when I'm having this conversation with you and I see your smile and the gleam in your eyes, you know what it makes me think? It
Hmm.
makes me think, when are we going to have a drink together?
Ah, I'd love that, man. And I think we both like bourbon. So
Nice. I'm in.
okay, okay. So let's do that. When you're on West, when I'm on the East,
Where
right?
where are you
Okay.
based?
Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. I
I
don't know if
love
you
it.
ever come out this way.
Yeah. I think I might actually be out there later this year. Let's meet up for a
Okay.
bourbon.
Okay. I would love that. I would love that. And thank you for your words. I appreciate that. Um, there's so much humanity here. There's so much humanity in your craft, in your book, in your journey. And so going back to the question of what is your latest thinking? Well, first of all, being in the middle, you talk about being in the middle. Being in the middle is like between being openness and vanity and knowing something and not knowing something. So where you are right now in the middle is, do you have to be a good human to be a good horseman, or does a good horseman have to be a good human?
It's really interesting that you asked me that right now, because I've been having the same conversation even last night with my wife. And it really depends, of course, on just how you define that word to yourself. It's very different than if you look up a dictionary definition of that word, what a horseman is. Uh, but when I think about what a horseman is to me, and the best sort of way that I could feel that definition is that when I see somebody, I go, I want to learn from them. Like that's a person that I want to learn from. That's a person that I want to soak in their knowledge. I want to be around them, and I want some of what they've got. And when I see a person that is good with horses, but they're not good with people. And by good with people, I don't necessarily mean you got to be extroverted and a good storyteller. I mean, you're authentic, you're honest, you've got some of those characteristics. And when I see a person that's good with horses, but is not authentic, is not honest, is not trying to be a good person, it doesn't want to make me be around them and soak that in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so to me, that definition of a horseman is more all encompassing. And it
Yeah.
includes, how you are with yourself, and it includes how you are with other people and other animals.
I want to close with a quote and then a question to end it up here. Your quote is, because this is what you teach all of us about leaning in with authenticity and working through fear. You said, "I thought I need to own who I am. There was no point in being somebody else at this point. No point in pretending or imitating. Let's see if I can be all me." And that's what you did before you won 2024 as you went in there. Um, so a lesson for all of us. And the question to leave you with, or for you to leave us with, is what what do you hope this work, this book, your journey does for others?
You know, yes, the questions you're asking me are questions that I'm still pondering myself, and it's funnily enough also a question that I was talking with Sinead about yesterday, my wife, and we were talking about at some point maybe doing another book or doing a TV show, and she kept coming back and asking me, as a good partner does that pushes you, she'd be like, "Why? Why do you want to do this?" And when I think about the people that have made the biggest difference in my life, there have been people that haven't uh, told me what to do or yelled at me for doing the wrong thing. They have been people that have inspired me to do the right thing. And they have lived what they've spoken, and they've tried to work, with people and with horses in a way that was skillful and with the best intentions. And I think in the world that we live in now, but especially the horse world that we're in now, there's uh, there's something really valuable about trying to pass that on to future generations. And up until even now, I feel much more at home in the role of a learner than a teacher. But I think, I'm 43 years old now, and I think at some point in the next few years, I'm going to be one of the older horse people instead of one of the younger horse people. And I really do think it's important um, to pass on what we know to the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be a bit more of a struggle for me to always be in a teaching role than a learning role, but I think it's important and it's something that I really um, want to do.
Yeah.
And hopefully, some of the values that I've followed in the book myself, hopefully, nobody is reading that book and saying, "Oh, Tik told me to do this," but maybe there'll be some things that inspire them to do something a little bit differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And you are never going to stop learning. You're going to be a teacher and a lifelong learner. It's in your DNA. You can't not do it.
Thank you.
Tick. All right. Tell everyone where to get your book, where to watch what you're doing about the farm, and everything that they need to know.
Yeah, so check out the book. You can get it directly from the publisher. Trafalgar Books is the name of the publisher. It's a small publishing company in Vermont. Also, I'd encourage you to check out your local tack shop or bookstore to find the book and see if they're carrying it, or encourage them to carry it. And then, of course, for those of us that maybe don't have the time or the motivation to do any of those things, you can just order it on Amazon.
There you go. And the farm. What? Say a little bit about your farm.
Yeah, we've got 20 acres here in Citra, Florida, Central Florida, just north of Ocala. And I think we've got a website which is Copperline Equestrian. And my wife and I are on the road about 20 weekends a year teaching clinics all around the United States and sometimes overseas or in Canada.
Awesome. Tik, thank you. And best of luck with what's next. And I'm going to look forward to that bourbon.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon.
Tik is such a grounded, honest, and authentic individual. And just sitting with him, you can feel his presence, his ability to be there in the moment, fully locked in. And he had many drops of wisdom to share with us. And here are 5 key takeaways. Number 1, the hardest conversations are with ourselves. Tik reminds us that facing fear isn't just about big leaps, it's about the daily discipline of honesty with ourselves. Number 2, high involvement, low attachment equals freedom. Whether you're training a horse or navigating life's transitions, the goal isn't control, it's presence. Stay engaged, let go of the outcomes. Number 3, authenticity is a practice, not a trait. The most powerful leadership on the farm, in the family, or at work comes from leading with curiosity, humility, and your full self. Number 4, real connection requires slowing down. In a distracted world, presence is radical. Tik's process shows us how to reclaim our attention and build trust, one grounded step at a time. And number 5, great horsemanship is great humanity. At its core, this isn't a horse story, it's a human story. What does the horse need from me? That question could just change how we treat everyone in our lives. Well, everyone, I've got some good news for you all. We're bringing back a listener favorite, Sitting Down with Dr. Dan episodes right here. These episodes are where I answer your questions directly, so I need your questions. If there's something on your mind about purpose, personal growth, possibility, or anything else we talk about here, we want to hear from you. Here's what you do. Send me your questions to podcast@drdanpeters.com. Now, not just questions, we want to hear your voice. Send an audio message or a video message, and we will use your voice on the show, and then I will take a stab at answering what you give me. That concludes our show for today. What a great conversation, leaving you so inspired. Please send this to everyone and anyone you know who wants to be inspired as well to live a life with purpose, with presence, and with humility. Thank you for being a part of our show. Thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you for subscribing, your 5-star reviews. They really do make a difference. And as always, I will leave you with this closing thought. We have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. This has been a Peters and Rossi production. Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan is produced by Laura Rossi. Our engineer is Phil Rossi. Theme music is Uplifting Folk by Awesome Music. Artwork by Kelly Dwyer. Follow us on social media at Dr. Dan Peters. For more information, visit drdanpeters.com.